Thank you for joining me. It's the Padawans podcast, episode 5, and we have our first guest from the Now They Fly Now podcast, Cart2d2. How's it going, buddy?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me, and it is an honor being the first guest on
Yeah,
Padawan's podcast.
yeah. When I started this with David, unfortunately, this is going to be a little bit more pre-recorded. David wasn't able to come on this week, so I'm switching it up. Every so often, we're going to have a podcast where it's not going to be an episode about the Clone Wars. It can be anything Star Wars. So we're going to have this episode's going to be about Carter's favorite TV show, Star Wars Rebels. He's actually holding up the Sabine Wren Rebels emblem for the people that are going to be listening.
Yes.
But Carter, what was your first experience with Star Wars?
So, with Star Wars in general, my first experience was definitely with my dad, and I mean, I was probably 5 years old, and my dad is a teacher, and every so often he would invite his teacher friends over to do whatever, and all of them were pretty big Star Wars fans.
Yep.
So they were binging the movies one day, and as a probably 5-year-old kid, I was like, "Oh, okay, I want to watch Star Wars because Star Wars seems freaking sweet."
Yeah.
So I walked down, and that was my first interaction with it, was watching. And we actually did prequels first because they were trying to do it in chronological
order. Yeah.
So Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. And I remember after Revenge of the Sith, like running up to my room and just bawling my eyes out because I had no clue. I'm like, oh my gosh,
this kid's the same age as me. How did he grow up so fast?
Yeah, the kid that was just my age is now laying in the freaking ashes of Mustafar, burning alive. I'm just like,
oh my god. This is my first exposure. This is not okay.
Yeah, exactly. This is my first exposure to this thing. And then obviously keep watching it, and then kind of fell in love. I remember getting different action figures. My dad would always get me just different. I'm not sure what series they were, but just general action figures.
They would have been like Hasbro.
They were probably
figures. Yeah, because Hasbro was the one that was pushing them for the longest time, especially for Revenge of the Sith. Because obviously, I'm a little older than you are.
Yeah.
But I remember the Hasbro packaging had a silhouette of Darth Vader for Revenge of the Sith, and every single package had that. So that was the coolest thing for me. So yeah, I mean, we grew up in the prequel era. You kind of towards the end of it, and I was heavy into it.
Yeah.
So,
but what I think's interesting about not my generation, because I think we'll probably still both Gen Z.
No, I'm millennial.
Okay.
I'm on the back end of the millennial. I could have been a Gen X.
Okay.
Or whatever.
Yeah, whatever the heck it is.
Yeah.
But what I think's interesting is I grew up with the prequels, but I didn't grow up. I mean, I kind of grew up with the prequels, but like one thing I can't relate to that a lot of people my age can is that they grew up with the Clone Wars. I never really watched the Clone Wars. I mean, no, like since then, obviously I've watched it, but but I didn't grow up like every Friday waiting for the new episode of the Clone Wars drop out. It's just kind of not how it was. I was more of let's go watch Revenge of the Sith or Return of the Jedi. I love Return of the Jedi. I'll watch that all day. But yeah, that's just kind of how I grew up. And then with Star Wars, Lego Star Wars, the video game was always there.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of my intro to Star Wars.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so speaking of Clone Wars, I'll have to get you on for an arc. Because I've got a couple of amazing guests coming up for just individual arcs coming up. So I'll have to get you on for something that you actually like, so you, me, and David can chop it up and talk about the arc. But
yeah, for sure,
we're not here for Clone Wars today, people. And just before we get into it, if you haven't seen Star Wars Rebels, I would suggest you skipping this week's episode.
Pause the episode,
Yes.
go watch, and then come back.
Yeah, and then come back. Yeah, absolutely. Come back, and then you can enjoy the conversations that we are about to have, because there are spoilers for Clone Wars. There are events from Clone Wars in the later seasons that Rebels does spoil. So keep that in mind. But if you've seen it, get ready for an awesome episode of Rebels. If you're a Rebels lover, it's going to be a awesome time.
Yes.
So
Rebels is awesome.
So let's just get into it. Rebels first aired in, I want to say 20. So shortly after the merger.
Is it 14?
2014 or 2015?
Let me look it up.
I want to say it's 2015. And so my first exposure
2014, yep.
Yeah, 2014. So I would have been a sophomore in college. So I didn't really get into Rebels, to be honest. I kind of missed the airings of the first season. And then I kind of heard things midway. I caught a feeling. I've never heard of this Star Wars Rebels. Maybe I should check it out. I ended up liking it. The first season, and we'll talk more in depth about each season. That's what the main basis of today is going to be. We're going to go through each season, talk about what we liked, what could have been improved, or aspects, and get into the nitty gritty of this show, because it really builds on what the future is coming in Star Wars content. So, season
capital
1
letters in the future.
Yeah,
because
many
series are going to be built off of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So first season, we get to meet Ezra, who is the main character of this show. So first watching this, I was like, this kid's a thief. How are we gonna make a show about a thief joining the rebellion? Like, how's this gonna work? But like that first exposure to him stealing what was it? I can't even remember what happened in the
A280s.
Yes, the weapons.
I think they're A280s. It could be a different gun, but I had this in a trivia a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason I think it's an A280.
Yeah, I think it could be an A2. I think it could be the A280s, because later on, because in that same episode, doesn't Zeb talk about the Empire using those? Correct?
Zeb talks about the gun that exterminated his.
Oh, okay.
I'm
thinking those are the same things. Obviously, for the listeners and the watchers right now, I'm out of my element. That Rebels isn't my thing, but I enjoy it, and I wanted to bring Carter on so I could learn a little bit more about the show. But yeah, it kind of has its moments in the first season. It's just like any other show, like Bad Batch, for example. Now, it's the first season of a show that's just starting, especially animation. You have your speed bumps, but as long as you stay with it, it'll improve. Don't you agree?
That is the biggest thing I found with the series is, well, I'll just tell. So personally, I didn't watch Rebels until about 8 months ago, probably going on a year now.
Wow.
So I'm a very new fan, but
yeah,
I loved it, and I never watched it because of that reason, because because of hate, it's gotten online because of the animation styles or whatever. But one day I was just like, okay, let's sit down and watch this.
Yeah.
And the first few episodes, I'm like, okay, this could be fun, whatever. And then
it's got potential.
As you keep watching, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And this happened to my friend. We would always watch whatever together, like Star Wars, Marvel, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, you should sit down and try to watch Rebels. I'm only about half a season in. If you could easily catch up, and then we could watch it together.
There you go.
I think that's why I like Rebels so much, is because it has like a little like memory, like
No, yeah, absolutely. Just like
like recent nostalgia in it. But then as we kept watching it, we're like, oh crap, this is good. This is good. This is good. This is good.
no,
And as you get to
absolutely.
season 4, you're like, wow.
No, yeah, absolutely. It Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck do such a great job did such a great job with this show. Like especially with the characters, especially with Ezra. Starting in the first season, you meet him, he's a thief, then he runs into Kanan, who we know a little bit of background now of
Now,
what he
yeah.
was before. And then all of a sudden, especially in the first episode, you can kind of tell. I think this kid is force sensitive because it plays the force theme a little bit
For sure. The
when
Force
he's
theme is
looking.
hinted.
Yeah, when he
Yes.
looks at Kanan from a top, when he's looking above
Mm-hmm.
and he sees Kanan below, it goes and then
Mm-hmm.
it would go ba-da-da. That's how it starts. So it'd play that part, and then he would hide, and then Kanan would notice it too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny how that interaction in the first season starts in that first episode.
Yeah. I mean, the first interaction we get of Ezra is kind of crazy looking back on it to where he was compared to where he's going. And we'll talk about more where he's going. But when we first meet him, he is like he's basically a stray cat.
Yo,
He doesn't
absolutely.
have anything. His family, we don't know what happened to his family.
Nope.
He's just a nomad
Mm-hmm.
collecting stormtrooper helmets in his tower.
Yeah.
He's stealing to eat. He has no sense of family at all. Knows he
No.
doesn't know anything about the Force.
No,
Ezra knows
absolutely not.
nothing about the Force.
No,
And then
absolutely not.
he runs into these people. You're like,
Yeah, that are
huh. They're
somewhat rebels, but not part of the rebellion.
yeah, they're like at the time, they're somewhat rebels. They're
Yeah.
rebels, but they're not rebels.
Yeah, rebels. Yeah, absolutely. So as we progress through the first season, Kanan, who is a rogue Jedi, not a rogue Jedi, but he is a surviving
Survived Order
Jedi.
66.
Yep,
Yeah.
survived Order 66, but because of Hunter from the Bad Batch, by the way,
Oh yeah.
um, he meets up with a Twi'lek, Hera Syndulla, who we meet
Also in the Bad Batch.
also in Bad Batch, but we have the name Syndulla should sound familiar to you guys because Cham Syndulla is her father, who we see in the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
We actually see him in the first season, the Storm of Ryloth, in that arc towards the end of season 1. But those two meet up in a book, A New
Mm-hmm.
Dawn, which came out relatively close to Rebels season, in between Rebels season 1 and season 2.
Yeah.
And then you got
We
Sabine Wren,
who is daughter of Ursa Wren, Mandalorian.
yes, which ties into the Clone Wars as well because Dave
Mm-hmm.
built a lot of that Mandalorian lore from George in the Clone Wars, which was interesting. I really liked her character.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Sabine's one of my favorites, and I'll get to it later on, but yeah.
no, yeah, and then the last. Well, okay, so there's two members
Zeb
left.
and Chop.
Yep,
Chop,
Zeb.
obviously.
What's Zeb's story again?
Lasat that has survived. The Lasat
Uprising.
Well, when the Empire just killed all of the Lasats.
Yeah, the massacre. Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that they all have a story of they were all lost at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Kanan was lost after Order 66. Hera, obviously, we just watched in Bad Batches, lost after everything happened in the Bad Batch.
Yep.
We have Zeb, who was lost after the Lasat.
I want to say it's the Uprising. I think it's the Uprising because
okay, yeah.
Well, and this is the first species that we actually see of Zeb, and actually another fun fact, he was actually supposed to be the concept. He was the concept art for Chewbacca.
Yeah.
For the Wookiees. That's what they were supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And a lot of things about Rebels is that they used a lot of the artwork that Ralph
Hmm.
McQuarrie did and put it in the
Yes,
show.
which is like it gets a lot of hate, the art type,
I
but
like it.
it has a lot more it has a lot of history to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It has to
But
fit with the original trilogy era,
of
and that's
course,
what Ralph
and it
McQuarrie
does
does.
perfectly. It
Oh yeah,
goes
absolutely.
obviously the Clone Wars and Rebels have very different art styles, but the Clone Wars is closer to the prequels, and
Yep.
as we move towards the original trilogy, we get more original trilogy concept art in Rebels,
Yes.
which is fantastic writing.
Yeah, and absolutely. And we so Ezra meets up with the ragtag
Oh wait,
Lothal group.
can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
So we were saying Zeb was lost,
Mm-hmm.
Kanan was lost,
Yes.
Hera and Chopper were lost, Sabine was lost because of different family issues on Mandalore,
Yes.
and then who they meet? Ezra,
Ezra. He's
who's
lost.
lost.
So it's just a whole bunch of
It's perfect.
misfits.
It's
It's
a whole
it's
bunch of misfits
yeah.
that join together to do greater good.
No, yeah, absolutely. And to see the relationships even in season 1. I mean, you see Ezra and Kanan. Kanan finally reveals who he is after
Yeah.
years of hiding, which I mean, Freddie Prince Jr. is amazing.
Yes, he's
He is probably one of my favorite voice actors or actors in
oh
everything
yeah,
he
Freddie Prinze
does,
Jr. is an
especially with Star Wars, because he's almost as big as nerd as Sam Witwer.
yeah.
And it's just so crazy how much he really put into his character of Kanan.
Yeah.
Um, but and I love Hera. It's like the Ghost Crew. It feels like Star Wars. Some things
Yes,
I
it
feel like
feels like Star
it
Wars.
feels like original trilogy Star Wars. You know,
Yes.
um. So he meets up with them. He all of a sudden, so he in the I think in the second episode he steals a hologram or he
He
senses the hologram.
steals,
Right?
yes.
Take
Mhm.
me through that episode.
So, after they first pick him up, they get captured by the Empire. I
Yep.
believe this would be the second episode. And while they're getting captured, a little bit before Ezra steals the holocron, opens it. He opens the holocron.
And guess who
Craziness. And we
shows
get
up?
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And it's one of the it's crazy. You're watching that, you're like, oh, that's the
Yeah.
message he sent to all the Jedi.
Yeah,
Oh!
absolutely. Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
then I may be getting episodes mixed up. I'm pretty sure this is second episode. They get caught. Ezra then gets put into the jail cell.
Yes.
He then disappears. The two
Uh-huh.
stormtroopers walk in, and he goes bye, and
Yeah,
they go,
pretty much. Yeah.
and then they take him back. And what's funny is Ezra saves Zeb's life. So then until Zeb saves Ezra's life, there's like a little grudge, like,
There's a
oh,
you owe me. You
yeah,
owe
you
me.
owe me. And then I
Pretty
think in
much.
episode 3 or 4, when they steal the TIE fighter,
Yes.
that episode, Zeb's like, he's like, whoa, have I repaid you yet? And he's
Yeah,
like,
pretty
fine,
much.
fine, just let me jump in the TIE.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, so it's just fun to see. The first season is very much so the antagonist is a inquisitor who we find out more of his background in season 2, but his first canon appearance is actually in the Darth Vader comic in
Yeah.
2017.
Yeah, so spoilers for Vader 2017.
Yeah, spoilers.
In Vader 2017, or in case you guys want to know, after directly after Order 66, Palpatine goes out, finds ex-Jedi to lure to the dark side, who will then hunt down old Jedi. We see them training, and the Grand Inquisitor is kind of the head of the Inquisitors, who him and Vader have a bit of bitterness, you could say, towards each other.
Yeah. So I would say that relationship is Vader Vader knows what they're being used for. He knows he's superior to them. He
Yeah.
just goes along with it because that's what Palpatine wants.
Yeah, for sure.
More or less.
Yeah. Yeah, you should read Vader 2017
Yes, it's a
if you
great
haven't.
And especially if you're a prequel, if you
If
love
you're a
the
oh my
prequels,
gosh,
and even if you
it
love Darth
literally
Vader,
the
it flushes out
first
his character.
the first panel of the comic is Vader screaming no.
Yeah, but
So
it
it's
gives it more
directly
depth.
after.
Yeah, it's more depth to
It's crazy.
that scene that everybody makes
Yes.
fun of. I mean, it's kind of corny. Yeah, I get it, but
Yeah.
it just adds more to that,
Yeah.
especially his character as well.
But back to Rebels.
Yes.
So we meet the Grand Inquisitor and we see a few duels with Kanan throughout
Mm-hmm.
the series.
Yes.
And Kanan is outmatched. I mean, the Grand Inquisitor makes light work of him
Yeah, the
two
first couple of
times,
times. Yeah,
two, three
absolutely.
times throughout the season. And also throughout the season, we see Ezra get his first lightsaber.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting how that happens.
Yeah, and his first lightsaber is really symbolic when you start to think about it. So his first lightsaber, if you guys don't know, which hopefully you guys have
Yeah,
because you've
hopefully,
seen it,
like we said, if you
you've
haven't,
seen it. His lightsaber is a blaster and a saber in one.
which is very, very not common
It's
for a
not
Jedi to have.
common. It's unique.
Yes.
It's you could say it's a little bit childish and kind of immature.
Yeah, a little bit.
I would say. I mean, it's just like a fun little gimmicky lightsaber. I mean, it's
Yeah,
pretty cool. Pretty cool.
but it's very, very useful.
Oh, it's super useful. It's
It's
just
very useful. Yeah, absolutely. It
yeah,
catches a lot of stormtroopers off guard. Granted, it's still stormtroopers,
yeah,
but it is very useful, and it's a good way to that's a perfect way to explain that lightsaber. It's very childish,
yeah.
but its uses are very well.
Yes. And that lightsaber later on gets replaced, but for all of season one, the blaster lightsaber is the lightsaber he uses.
Yep.
And then kind of now obviously more things happen in season one, but then in the finale, because I think briefly talk about season one, then we could talk more into
Season two.
two,
So we
three,
have
and
a
four.
yeah, we have a lot of appearances. So Agent Callus is also a minor antagonist. He plays a big role throughout the entire series. You actually get to see Vader. So I think the first scene in the actual episode in episode one is Vader as a hologram talking to the Grand Inquisitor. Am I wrong?
Yes, yes. The
Okay.
first episode, in the first episode, we 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 see Vader as a giant hologram, which again, his helmet is based off of um
From
concept art for Darth Vader,
yes.
talking to the Grand Inquisitor. Um, I forget what exactly he
He
says.
says hunt down any surviving Jedi.
Yeah, yeah,
And pretty much just basically do what the Inquisitors do.
yeah,
Um, and I mean, you get to see appearances from Tarkin. You get to
yeah.
see
Tarkin's a
Mustafar towards
player.
the end of season
Yep,
one, which is obviously as a prequel person I love because Mustafar it means so much to the whole saga. Because it's a lot of I mean a lot of things in canon do happen on Mustafar. So
yeah.
um
And as throughout season one,
yep,
we also are getting messages from Fulcrum.
Fulcrum. Yes.
Who's Fulcrum?
Which
And then,
which was a reference to if you when you get to season 7 of the Clone Wars, Fulcrum is the code name for Saw Gerrera back in the Clone Wars that
mm-hmm,
Anakin and Obi-Wan gave him. But it is now used by Ahsoka Tano.
mm-hmm,
She is joined up with the rebellion in Bail Organa, which you find out in the Ahsoka novel, which I would very, very highly recommend. So Hera, and you get to see a lot of you see the beginning of Hera really building. I mean, at this point, at the end of season one, you see Hera dabbling in with the rebellion a little bit at a time.
yeah.
and really buying in, and you get to see more of her, of her father's way of like
Yes.
fighting for a cause. She really buys into that when towards the end of season 1 into season 2. But Kanan overcomes his fear and really decides to take Ezra on, not
Yeah, and that's a
half-assed. And that's a
huge,
huge moment for his character, for
huge.
sure.
Yes.
Be-
That's one of his biggest moral conflicts in season 1. He's like, do I want to take this
am I worth?
kid?
Well, more or less, am
Am
I
I
worthy?
worth?
Am I
Am I
worthy of
worthy?
being this? Can I
Because
really do this?
because he's like, well, past whatever 10 years, he's just been kind of there, not
Yeah,
much to do with the Jedi. He's like, am
no.
I even worthy to do this?
And he gets his answer. He takes down the Grand Inquisitor, and the Grand Inquisitor kind of
Yeah.
gives us foreshadowing.
Which, yeah, let's talk about that.
So as Kanan defeats the Grand Inquisitor, and
Well, let's talk about that whole fight because I think that whole fight's really interesting.
no, yeah,
So we see the Ghost crew infiltrating the Grand Inquisitor's Star Destroyer,
yep, mm-hmm.
and this guy who was previously beating the crap out of them with the power of Kanan and Ezra working together,
Yep,
they're able to take down the Star Destroyer, obviously with the help of the Ghost crew,
yep,
and take down the Grand Inquisitor.
yeah, and also incapacitate Tarkin's Star Destroyer
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Um,
And I think it's really funny how they kill the Grand Inquisitor
mhm.
by there's this huge flashy battle, and then all you see is Kanan stick his little lightsaber through
Yeah, and then
the rotating part, and then just
yeah,
and as the Grand Inquisitor's dying, he says, "There are things I fear more than death."
yeah, which is
You're like,
a
that
huge.
means he's not the big bad. He's not. He's like, okay,
I'm
I'm
just
gonna
a
die.
stepping stone. I'm just a stepping stone. I know what's really coming for you.
He's like, okay, yeah, I'll die.
So here's my
Okay.
question: Do we think do we think Vader was on Mustafar when all of this was going down?
I mean, probably.
I would think so,
I would think so.
because that would make more sense when Tarkin shows up to Lothal and
Yeah.
he says the Emperor needs to take care of this Jedi. Has something other in mind, and all you hear is the Vader just walk out, and then you hear the Imperial March, a version of it play. Dude, it's gosh, for people that Vader Anakin Skywalker is my favorite character. So when he showed up, I was in. I was like, "Yep, season 2 is going to be great,"
Oh
because
yeah.
him being the big bad was. I was like, well, I mean, if Vader shows up, there's a chance that they might not make it out alive.
Hmm.
But now that we've gotten down season 1, let's break down season 2.
Okay.
So
So, oh,
no,
so
go ahead.
season 2 is things definitely start to get more spicy,
Oh yes.
especially towards the end. But I think probably the first big milestone would be the Jedi Temple on Lothal.
Well, the first episode with the two-parter, Vader ends up
Oh yeah.
tricking the rebels into trying to rescue
Yes,
dang it, I can't think of her name.
Luminara.
No, not Luminara.
I mean, not.
That's in season 1.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Luminara is season 1, but she's obviously dead. I don't know how that worked, but that was a really good trick by them early on. But
Yeah, that was a very good,
in season
very
2,
good.
they were supposed to save the prime minister of Lothal.
Mhm.
And they end up getting really close to saving her, except her ship blows up with her in it. And then Callus, who is also following them, Vader ultimately had set a trap and knew that that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's so sinister. and so much like Vader. I was like, this fits perfectly
You see
because
so much of Anakin and Vader throughout the
oh yes,
series.
oh yes, absolutely. And then he corners the Ghost Crew. Um, Ezra, as they're getting onto the shuttle, says the pain, the fear, or I sense something, and Kanan also sensed it at the same time, and then you pan back and you see Vader with some smoke coming out, and he ignites his lightsaber, and I go, oh,
You're
that's
like,
a good shot.
oh,
Yeah. So
yeah.
that, and then he lets them escape,
Mm-hmm.
which diabolical. He knew that was going to happen. One of the commanders on the Star Destroyer goes, "Why is he letting him go?" And Callus goes, "Because he has a plan." And it's perfect. Vader
Yeah.
is is hands down the greatest villain in all of cinema history. He just is.
Yeah. I mean, he's Vader.
Yes, he's Vader.
He's
And
Vader.
then come to the second part is when you get the reaching out with Ezra, Kanan, and Ahsoka, and then Vader feels it and says, "So the apprentice
Just
lives."
lives.
And
So
that's
the
where you get
apprentice
that
lives.
gravitas
And then
where oh
you're like, oh my gosh.
yeah, it's that
And
first
then,
episode or
well,
two episodes is
then
just
Ahsoka, then Ahsoka passes out.
yes,
She's like, oh, I
yeah,
remember I'm just like, no, oh my
yeah, pretty much, yeah,
gosh.
because
You're
the
just a
last
freak. Like, there's nothing more to do than just freak out. You're just like,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And
But
then moving past the Siege of Lothal,
yeah,
we get introduced to the, what do you want to call them? The good old boys with Captain Rex.
oh yes, the Gregor and Wolf.
Wolf, Gregor,
They
Wolf, and Rex.
yep, and
Just
they
living on their own. Somehow, Gregor and Wolf get their chips out,
yep.
which I was hoping we were gonna see that in Bad Batch,
You
but we
might
haven't
see
yet.
that later. I if there's a season two, which
Oh yeah, for
most
sure.
likely there will be, I think that'll be explained in that.
Yeah, and we get the really cool sequence with them killing that giant monster
Yeah, with Zeb. They use
with the.
Zeb.
Zeb's like,
And
no, I don't want to be the bait, and
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
they're like fishing for this thing. Zeb's like,
Well,
ah.
well, in the beginning, it's like Ezra, like Zeb, and like none of the ghost crew that goes down with him realizes that he's being used as bait. And then Ezra goes, "Zeb, you're the bait." And then it's too late. He gets eaten by the creature. But then it ultimately works out, and it's like Rex and Gregor are like, "Oh, we knew that was gonna happen." It's like, no, you didn't. Don't lie. You didn't
Like
know that was gonna happen.
we have meat for the next 5 years.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Well, the other thing at the beginning of that episode is Ahsoka sends them to
Yeah,
find him,
Ahsoka sends them to recruit them.
and she specifically speaks to Kanan and says, "Trust them."
Yeah.
And it and after seeing what we see in Bad Batch,
Yes, makes
it
that scene
so
so
much
deeper
more.
because
Yeah,
Kanan's like, I never ever want to trust a clone again, and
absolutely.
you're telling me to trust them?
Yeah. So and it kind of and that really builds onto a under talked about relationship between Kanan and Rex.
Yeah.
Because Rex is kind of they were sent to get the clones and have them come and fight for the rebellion. First, they were kind of skeptical. Then Callus shows up because a probe droid finds the Ghost Crew and the clones. The clones end up taking them out. Rex decides, okay, I'm gonna go with because Commander Tano still needs me.
Yeah.
And it was a nice little moment after having seen season 7 of Siege of Mandalore, and seeing that Ahsoka hug on Rex was just it meant a lot.
It means
because at that point when it was releasing, all we got was the Ahsoka book. So we really didn't know what had happened between the two, because the last time we saw Ahsoka was she had left the order and nothing else was said.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
And then we get to see them in almost a battle simulation, I believe is the next episode with the droids. And that's just kind of a good homage to
I think that might
the
actually be
Clone
in season.
Wars.
Yep, that's
Is that
season
in season
3.
3?
That's
Okay,
season
sorry.
3. So then the next one
We
is
get introduced to the seventh sister and the
yeah, fifth brother.
fifth brother.
Yep,
Yeah.
fifth brother.
Two.
So they are sent to a old Republic medical, not a medical station, but a station, to get supplies, and the Inquisitors use that as a bait to lure in Ahsoka, Kanan, and Ezra, which they only get Ezra, but you see a lot of character development in all of the episodes.
Yes.
And it's just
I mean,
little subtle little things.
these first few episodes of season 2 are just bangers.
Yeah, absolutely. One
Because
after
once the Grand
another.
Inquisitor dies, boom, there's 2 more.
Yeah, and Vader. So it's like the stakes are so much higher now than they had to bring it, and they definitely did for season 2.
Yeah. And then we meet Hondo a little bit.
Hondo Naka.
We see
Ezra calls himself Jabba.
Jabba. Well, that was in season 1.
Oh yeah, that is
season 1 episode when he was captured by the Empire for the first time. He goes, "What's your name?" He's like,
Jabba the Hutt. Yeah, Jabba the Hutt.
We see some awesome battles between Ahsoka and the Grand Inquisitors, or not the Inquisitors.
Oh yeah, sorry, the Inquisitors. Yeah.
Which is amazing. Whenever so it's like Kanan and Ezra are getting just pounded, and then Ahsoka does like a little like roll and just.
Yeah, she shows up. Yeah, she shows up and it's like, yeah, get to the ship, because they're in that episode they
were fending off for kids.
Yes.
The Force sensitive kids. And
yes, absolutely. And you see Ezra kind of builds his character a little bit with the little one, because he's trying to connect with the Force. And you see his development in the Force from season 1 and season 2. Yeah. Where in season 1 he was able to conjure animals, which is, a lot of these things aren't described in either the Clone Wars or in anything, the prequels, movies, or anything else. So
we're getting a lot of lore already in season 1 and 2. And
yeah, absolutely.
We're getting a ton of lore, and then we learn more about the Grand Inquisitor, about that he was, in fact, a Jedi.
Temple guard.
Yeah, a temple guard at the Jedi Temple. And then look at him where we saw him in season 1. And then the big episodes.
Yeah,
Twilight of the Apprentice, part 1 and 2, which I think are those are some of my best. Those are some of my favorite things in Star Wars.
Let's go back a little bit. Let's go to the temple when Ahsoka, Kanan, and Ezra go to the temple. We get our first. So Yoda. we don't get our first mention of Yoda. Yoda shows up in season 1 talking to Kanan and Ezra at one point. Now Ezra goes in and is in what we think is the world between worlds.
Yeah,
a little bit. We'll talk about that later in this later in a little bit. But we get our first scene of Yoda, of him actually seeing Yoda on Dagobah and having that back and forth. Then we have, so when they first show up to the temple, each individual has to face either a fear or a challenge. And the one that hits the most is Ahsoka, because she focuses, she's meditating. Then you hear Matt Lanter as Anakin Skywalker, and behind her shoulder is a image of Anakin, which I don't really like.
I don't necessarily like the image either.
Yeah, it's not the greatest.
But
It is what it is.
it's the Rebels animation, which going
Yes.
from I would say he's probably my least favorite of the
The animated.
cameos,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
animated
Absolutely.
cameos.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I like how they did Yoda. I like how they did Ahsoka, but Anakin,
Yeah, no, no, not so much. Not so much.
not so much. But it's so cool. It's the
Yeah,
concept that's there.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, and this really builds up to Twilight of the Apprentice. That's why I wanted to hit
Yeah,
this one first
yeah.
because then he asks, "Why did you leave me? Do you know what I have become?" And then you hear and you just see the silhouette and just the red aura around Vader, and she realizes that is Vader,
It's Vader.
and
But
that
she wants
is
to find out.
it's so
She
soul crushing as a Clone Wars, as having watched the Clone
yeah.
Wars all the way through. That moment means so much more,
And this is
and
all going on in her head.
yeah,
She hasn't told anyone about this. This
no,
is all internal. Just wait, Anakin's out there.
yeah,
Anakin's Vader.
yeah.
Oh
Oh
no.
crap. Yeah.
Oh crap.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh
Oh
no.
no. This is bad.
How did this all go wrong? How did this
Yeah.
happen? All of these questions are going through her head, and then as they leave the temple, because the Inquisitors ultimately find them through the Force, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Um, they end up getting into the temple, and as Ahsoka is leaving, there's Yoda saying, "What's up, girl? Hey, how you doing?" Just like the gets his cane up and says, "What's up?" And Ahsoka just gives him like a okay, and then goes. So I thought that little moment was cool. But
Another episode before we talk about Twilight the
no,
Apprentice
yes.
is the episode with Zeb and Callus. Zeb and
Mm-hmm.
Callus, who Callus killed his entire species, but very few, and
Yes.
Zeb are stranded on an ice planet.
Outside of Geonosis.
Yeah,
Yep.
together. They
Mm-hmm.
can't leave until one of them, or somehow they call for help.
Yeah.
And here we see a ton of character development for Callus, because
Yeah.
Callus is this just a-hole
Mm-hmm.
throughout the
Absolutely. First
entire
season.
series up until this point.
Yep.
Complete a-hole. The
Yeah,
first time we see
absolutely.
Callus, he's or one of the first times he's dangling from the bridge, and
And he
then the
kicks a
stormtrooper,
stormtrooper.
yeah, the stormtrooper's like, was that a Jedi? And he's like, "Doof." Stormtrooper
Yeah.
falls
Yeah,
to
just
shit.
kicks him.
What?
It's almost as bad as Grievous in the first season of Clone Wars, where he just takes out every droid. You
Yeah.
know? But
And now these two are stranded, and you definitely see some light of heart start to come to Callus after he
yeah,
realizes, hmm,
these
these guys aren't
these
that
guys aren't
bad.
bad. Yeah, it's
I'm
really
fighting for the
deep.
wrong thing.
Well, and then that also brings up the point of, can good people work for the Empire? And you
Yeah.
start to question.
But can you see, here's my whole thing with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he turns good,
Yeah,
but he
he
was
does a lot
really
of
bad.
yeah, he does a
There's
lot
a
of
lot of
bad
messed
stuff.
up things. Like
Absolutely.
Anakin. Like Anakin.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
honestly, Anakin's not a good person in the Empire. He was the Empire and was very bad. But
Yeah,
is that redeemable? See, that's where I'm like, I
you
don't know.
gotta
You
it
blew
all
up
depends.
Alderaan.
Yeah,
You blew up a whole
I
planet.
mean, you were part of the reason why it got blown up. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I
And
get what you're saying.
Callus is a complete
Different situation.
a-hole,
Yeah.
but turns good. I don't. Was he like that? Question is so
It's deep,
much. It's deep,
very deep.
and also, I know you haven't read Lost Stars, but there's some things in Lost Stars where like, is she good?
Yeah.
But she's in the Empire.
Yeah. Yep.
But anyway,
It's tough. But let's get into the two best episodes
okay.
of the entire series.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So during the temple on Lothal, Yoda tells Ezra to go to Malachor, the homeworld of the
Malachor
Sith.
5.
Malachor
Yep.
5. And so Ezra tells Ahsoka, and Ahsoka and Kanan leave, and they ultimately find this base. So
Yeah.
Hera's relationship with the rebellion, you really start to see it grow. She ends up becoming a leader of Phoenix Squadron, right? By this point, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And they
Yes.
find a base. I don't remember what that planet is called.
Yeah, what is that base called?
It's just called Chopper Base
Yeah.
because Chopper found it. So they find that. So after they make the base, Kanan, Ezra,
Ezra
and
and
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka all leave for Malachor 5. While they're
Yes.
on Malachor 5, they fall through the, you should say, crust of the planet
Yes.
and end up in a ancient
Sith
Sith
Temple.
temple with remains from some Sith war that I don't know if that's
We don't know.
we haven't had anything to explore that yet.
Well, there might have been some exploration already, but I'm not gonna
No,
spoil.
no, don't, no.
I'm not spoiling. I'm not spoiling. I'm not spoiling.
Oh no.
But anyways, so
Oh,
you get to see this. So they think
okay.
that they're going for
I'll let that
knowledge.
go. Hold on, I'll let that go over my head.
They go and look at this for knowledge, and so there's a possibility. So they think that they're going for knowledge of how to destroy the Sith. When really it's a weapon
It's a weapon.
of the Sith.
It's a big weapon of the
It's
Sith.
a big weapon. So there's an Inquisitor trying to not kill them, but kill another person.
Yeah.
Called the Shadow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
He's sent to kill the Shadow, and they're like, so then they disarm the Inquisitor, and they're like, who are you trying to get?
yeah,
And he
and
says
then
the Shadow.
the Shadow.
And then Ezra falls through again.
Yep, he falls
And
falls
who
through.
does Ezra meet?
Darth Maul.
Old Master.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, so that was a big one. So when it was first, so after I didn't watch season 1, I watched season 2 when it was first airing. And I was like, "Oh my, they really did that. They brought him back. That's ballsy." Cuz at that point, we didn't know what happened to Maul.
Nope.
So, I mean, I mean, I would love a little bit more story on how he got to Malachor 5, but I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Eventually. But then seeing Maul try to get Ezra to come
which
to
that's
his way
more
of
season
thinking.
3. That's more season
And
3 is him being the weird uncle.
yeah, but you start to see that relationship between those two characters.
Yeah. So we see, when we see Maul just kind of this thing that's been living there forever.
Yes.
He's like, here, help me open this Sith temple. Two can open it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to the rule of 2.
Yep, absolutely.
So then they open it. Ezra jumps. Maul pushes him, grabs the holocron.
Yep.
And then shit starts happening.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The Sith temple just starts erupting. They're like, oh wait, this is not just a temple. This is a weapon.
Yeah.
And we just started it.
Yeah.
And then who comes?
Vader.
Big Vader.
So honestly, that entrance that he has on his TIE Advanced, the most epic, like you couldn't get more badass.
It's the most Anakin. It's so Anakin.
It is. It really is.
So Anakin.
It's so extra. So like, much extra.
Yeah. He's just like, okay. That kind of shows that there's a little bit of Anakin still in him. Let's just be the most extra we can be, and let's ride on top of a TIE fighter.
Yeah. So like and before Vader shows up, the 2 Inquisitors also show up and fight off against Maul, Ahsoka, Kanan, and Ezra. Maul is he I think he's about what, around the same age as Obi-Wan, so around
Obi-Wan,
60
yeah.
or 70.
Yeah.
No, 60, because um Anakin's 10 years younger than Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So and Anakin's around 50. So he, or no, 40, I think,
He's
because
around
it's
50.
20,
It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't.
around that time. But he doesn't miss a beat. Ends up
Mm-mm.
killing the seventh sister, slicing her head off.
Oh, and you see
Um,
like the blood just splat. Like that's like a I hear that complaint a lot. There's not enough gore. I mean, when she dies, you just see like a mist of
yeah, you
blood.
see him miss, and it was airing on Disney XD. There's not much
Yeah,
they could do.
of
You know what I
course, of
mean?
course.
Like, you don't need to be, and like the demographic is 6+. You don't need to be showing heads being chopped off to a 6-year-old. They'll
Yeah,
have nightmares.
yeah.
But so when they ultimately, so at one point, Ahsoka and Kanan split up from Ezra
And
and
Ezra
Maul.
and so Maul wanted to ride the elevator thingy with Ezra, and
Yes,
Kanan says no.
yes.
And then Ahsoka and Ezra go to the top, while Kanan and Maul has some tension and ultimately start fighting.
Yep. And then so somehow we get from point A to point B here. Maul and Ezra end up meeting up. I think Maul and Ezra. So Ezra goes, "I'll go with Maul. You go with Ahsoka." Because Kanan and Ahsoka have a little back and forth. Or not Ezra. Kanan and Ahsoka have a little back and forth. And Ezra and Maul's planting the seed, always planting the seed of,
Yeah.
hey, you could always come with me. There's no reason that you have to. There's still a different way. And Ezra still is kind of like hesitant. And then Ezra gets sent up to the top of the temple to put in the holocron to find the knowledge. And obviously in Maul fashion, he turns on Kanan and ends up blinding him.
And blinds him.
So that's a
Yep.
great character arc right there. Of
And then what
Kanan,
does
how much
Kanan
struggle.
do?
Puts on a mask
Puts on a
and
mask like
and
a
beats him.
freaking badass and beats him.
And beats him.
And just
So
straight uses the force as his guide
yeah.
to just completely just you're like why were you doing this about 10 minutes ago when you could see?
No, yeah, absolutely. And you see his development as a character. It's kind of
Yeah.
like the old samurai
That's a
thing. I'm not
huge
gonna
that's a
use
big
Yeah, that is very big. That's a big moment for him. Having to adjust from not using his eyes to using his other senses is what really helps
really
him in.
tuning into the force.
Yes, absolutely. I still think that they took that from the um Force Unleashed games. He's supposed to be the Rom Coda of the
Okay,
group.
I've never played them.
Oh, you haven't?
I
You
have the second one.
you should play the first one. First one's got a great story, or at least watch the gameplay on YouTube. You can always do that.
Yeah.
But so then we finally do get to Vader. We see him pan down. He's standing on top of his TIE Advance with his lightsaber drawn. No, he doesn't have his lightsaber drawn at that point. I don't. No, he might. I don't remember.
I think it doesn't really matter. And then
Um,
he goes down and then Ezra and Vader start fighting. Ezra
yeah,
thinks that he has a chance.
yeah, no.
He gets the crap kicked out of him
Yep, gets his
and
lightsaber.
loses his little gimmicky lightsaber.
Yep, gets it cut up, and then Ahsoka shows up,
And
and
then
and then we get the heart tugging on the that
I'm here
episode.
to avenge. And she's like, I'm here to avenge
His
my
and he
master.
goes, she goes, I thought I knew who you were. but I know my master would never do anything like what you would do. And he said, Anakin Skywalker is dead. I killed him. And she
And then
goes,
I
you know what?
will.
I will avenge his death. And
Revenge
then
is not the way of the Jedi.
yeah.
I am
Revenge is not the
no.
Jedi way. And she goes, I
I.
am no Jedi. And she just, it's just so that fight in general.
And then she gets this. This is what I think is the most heart-wrenching part of that fight is she chips his mask, and you hear a
Yes.
mix between Matt Lantern,
And James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones, and it's Ahsoka. You're like,
And you see
she's
the
like
blue,
Anakin, and then
and you
she's
see the blue eye, don't you? Or no? Or is
mhm.
that just through an edit? I
I
think
think
that's
that's
just through
through
an
an
edit.
edit.
Yeah.
That's through an edit, but you see
You just hear that
Ahsoka.
voice and you just,
You're like, no, you're here,
and
and
then he's
and
gone.
and he's like, leave or you will
And
die.
then you will die. And then it's just,
It's like, no.
and
And
then,
then we think she dies.
yeah, we think she dies. Maul escapes in one of the Inquisitor's ties. Um, we see Vader very, very much damaged, walk out of the temple, and then you go back into the temple and you see the triangle. At the time,
Mm-hmm.
I called it out. I said, that's Ahsoka. She's not dead. There's no way she's dead. So that was the biggest thing in between season 2 and season 4 was were we ever going to get the answer? What happened to Ahsoka? And that would be answered later. Now,
Yeah.
season 3.
Season 3, we now Maul is kind of the uncle of the group. He's kind of like, hey Ezra. Hey Ezra.
So
Come
Ezra
with
gets
me.
so
And Kane's just
Ezra
like, shut up.
yeah,
Please shut up.
Yeah, pretty
You
much.
idiot.
Yeah, pretty much. So Ezra ends up taking the Sith holocron, which gives Maul that link to really get into no, that's season 4. That's when they get the link. And wait, no, that is season 3.
No, well, season 3 is Twin Sons.
Okay. Yep. And we'll get to
But
that.
so season 3, we get introduced to Thrawn.
Yes, which is
kind of introduced. Thrawn will now be the main antagonist through the rest of the show.
The rest of the series. You get to meet the Bendu, who is a Force user.
Who is the middle? He's the middle. Not a gray Jedi.
No, not a gray Jedi. He's
the Bendu is not a gray Jedi.
Yeah,
gray Jedi are not canon.
Yeah, they're not canon. So you get a little bit of development with him and Kanan's. Kanan learns quite a bit on his Jedi journey from the Bendu, so that's nice. Ezra gets a green lightsaber. Don't know how that happened, but whatever.
Yeah, and he does. So let's talk about that. So first we see Ezra with that childish, gimmicky lightsaber.
Yeah.
And then when season 3 comes, Ezra's completely changed. The first time we see Ezra in season 3, he is out there kicking some butt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the character development, Ezra between season 2 and season 3 is immaculate. He goes from being this little Padawan to just a freaking beast in season 3. Cuts his hair and gets the new lightsaber, which symbolizes a ton of character development.
That and a lot of time passing as well.
Yeah.
And then it gives you, with that story, it gives you time to make the big bad and kind of make the Lothal rebels a little bit more of a threat. And you think you can't get any more diabolical and more of the bet. You just think Vader, that's it. They can't get anyone better. And then they bring in Thrawn, who is the most diabolical, very, very, it's probably the most intelligent character in Star Wars, in my opinion. Just by the way he uses art and uses strategy. You learn a lot of his character. He was originally an EU or Legends character based on the book of the Heir to the Empire. And his obviously his race is Chiss. They are found in the Outer Rim, not the Outer Rim, the Unknown Regions. We don't know much about him in the show, but there are books, the Thrawn trilogy, which I highly recommend to anybody. Those are great books. But you get a little bit more background into Thrawn, and I thoroughly enjoyed him the rest of the series.
Right here.
Yeah, good books, really good books.
Yeah. So we learn a lot about Thrawn in these first few episodes, and then let's talk. I think the first main arc in season 3 would start with the episode "Visions and Voices,"
I believe so. Yeah,
they adventure to I'm forgetting
Mandalore. Or no.
To
Cordon,
yes,
Condor, Condor Blonde, Condor Dawn, Concord
yes,
Dawn. Yes, that's what it is.
Concordon. Yes,
Yep,
that is
Concord Dawn.
And Sabine gets possessed by, I forget what.
No, that's wrong.
That's
so
wrong.
That's on Dathomir.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because before we get into the Dathomir stuff.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about, the Dathomir stuff.
Yeah, so we'll hit that because that's after Concord Dawn, because they have to meet the Mandalorians first.
Yes.
And that's where it really brings out Sabine. Sabine becomes more of a frontline push character, whereas in the first 2 seasons she was more or less just a background, like part of the group.
Yeah, and we meet her family.
We meet her family in the later half of season 3. But they really, really do a good job. Sabine in she'd probably my number 3 spot behind Kanan and Ezra. I love her character development in season 3 and season 4. It's very, very thought out, in the way that she has to deal with challenges, especially trying to use certain things, which we ultimately when Maul and Ezra meet up, so Maul ends up capturing the Ghost Crew and taking them to like a Polis Massa type of planet. It's not that, but it's like an asteroid. Ezra and Maul use both Kanan's holocron and the Sith holocron to form, and they try to get the answers that they're looking for.
And Maul does.
And Maul finds out that Obi-Wan has survived. And also Ezra finds out that Obi-Wan has survived. And you know what's funny is that the key to destroying the Sith wasn't Obi-Wan. It was Luke.
Yeah.
So they weren't really looking for the right person, all in all, when you look at it big picture wise. But so now we get to Dathomir. Maul is in Ezra's mind, and he tells him to come to Dathomir.
They get to Dathomir, and Sabine gets possessed by the Night Sisters.
Yes.
And which we still don't know what Maul. So I guess he was just there because.
Well, he lured him there because that's his base of operations.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. We don't know how Maul got to have that. But, and Sabine, while she is possessed by the Night Sisters, steals the Darksaber,
which is a Mandalorian weapon.
Yes, if you don't know what the Darksaber is, it is you want almost an. You don't want to say heirloom, but kind of is through the Mandalorian culture. You have to win it by combat, and whoever wins it
is the leader of Mandalore.
Rightful ruler of Mandalore. It's in Mandalorian season 1 and 2, but
mostly in season 2.
It gets from Maul to Sabine. Sabine takes it over.
She doesn't beat him for it. She just takes it.
She just takes it.
Which
It's
in
funny.
Mandalorian season 2, it kind of gets a little
Yeah.
murky.
Well, that's yeah. So we see Sabine taken. She's like once she gets unpossessed by the Night Sisters, she's like, "Oh, I don't want this. I really don't
Yeah.
want this." And Kanan's like, "Hold on. Let's take a few steps back here. Let's learn how to use the dark saber and let's learn how to use it, how to wield it
You.
correctly, and then reevaluate and see if you actually don't want this thing." What
Mm-hmm.
and those episodes, it is the oh my gosh,
They build on Sabine's character
Trials of
so
the Dark
much.
Saber. Trials of the Dark Saber
Yes.
is, I
It's a good
think,
episode.
you get so much in Sabine.
Yes.
It's crazy, and you see her and Ezra sparring with sticks, and she's like, "Why the heck do I have to duel with sticks whenever I have this?" And
Yeah.
Ezra's like, "I thought the same thing," but she doesn't really buy into it much
Until, yeah. Absolutely. She
until
doesn't.
until they're like, "Okay, let's use our lightsabers. If you want to use a lightsaber, let's use our
Yeah,
lightsabers."
Kanan
And
pushes her.
Kanan just kicks the crap out of her and like,
One, and the fact that he pushes her to, because she's had so much inner pain. She is resented by her own family. She built weapons for the Empire, all of these things, and he brought that out of her, and he said, "This is why. This is what this is about. This is who
Mhm.
you are." And the fact that they built on that is so amazing,
Yeah.
so amazing. Um, but who is the Mandalorian? I can't think of his name. We see him in Concord Dawn. He helped
Gar
Kanan on
Saxon?
my. Is
No.
it Gar? No, that Gar Saxon is
Gar
the
Saxon's
evil.
on. I thought that's who you meant on Mandalore.
No,
Wait, who are you
um,
saying?
I'm talking about um. He's got the blue armor. I. It's been a while since I watched Rebels. I can't remember his name. Hold on, I'll get it. Um.
But anyway, we Sabine then goes to kind of after that episode, she's like, "Okay, I'm going to go back to Mandalore, see my family after all these years of not being with them."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then she's like, "Hey, look, I also have the dark saber."
Oh, I've almost got the name. It's on the tip of my tongue here. Hold on. It is. Hold on. Uh, Fen Rao. Fen Rao.
Oh
Yeah,
yes.
he's the leader of that gang of Mandalorians that aren't necessarily with the Empire, but they aren't trying to fight them off either.
Yes.
He explains to Kanan a couple episodes before about the dark saber.
Yeah.
Um, and it it's very very opening on how much they hit on Mandalore in that in these next two seasons. It's really
Yeah.
awesome. Um, so the way season 3, how does season 3 end?
So after Sabina's everything with the dark saber, she gives the dark saber to Bo-Katan. Bit
Which,
ironic.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, I mean, I'm sure you've all seen Mando season 2.
That's not how you're supposed to get it, but she takes it,
No,
and
but
now
she
it's kind of
takes it.
contradicting now.
Yeah. Anyway, Bo-Katan is something else.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
get twin sons. So this whole time, um, Maul is being this. He's pokey.
Yeah,
He's like, "Hey Ezra, hey Ezra, hey Ezra." Once they get the holocrons together, Maul's like, "Okay, I got what
I'm
I
full.
wanted.
Yeah, I'm
Now,
full into your head though too.
yeah, we're full. Yeah." He's like, "I almost have complete control of you. Now let's go kill Obi-Wan so then I can be your master."
Pretty much.
He gets to Tatooine. after days of just walking in the sand, the iconic Kenobi.
Yeah, that was such a good job. And it's the episode starts with him walking through the sand,
Yes.
which is ironic because that's the first time we see him is on Tatooine.
Mm-hmm. And this whole
So
time, Ezra's with Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan
yeah,
is mentoring,
so
just there.
Ezra trying to find Obi-Wan ends up passing out from exhaustion, and
Yeah.
Obi-Wan gets him on a dewback and he
Yes.
gets him into the night. He says he knows exactly who he is. He knows who Ezra is, which is interesting to me because Obi-Wan, we don't know much about Obi-Wan, and hopefully we get a little bit more of a glimpse in the show.
Yeah.
But it this episode really I don't know what I'm trying to say. It really captures the relationship between Obi-Wan and Maul throughout the entire saga.
Mm-hmm.
So
then Maul finds Obi-Wan,
yes.
and we get the battle.
So he starts off in Qui-Gon.
No, so Obi-Wan starts off in Obi-Wan's
that one.
more stance. He starts off here.
Yeah.
He then moves. He moves to his new.
No, to Qui-Gon's.
No, to his stance.
Oh, okay.
And then he shifts to Qui-Gon's, baiting Maul into thinking, okay, he's
I
going
know how
to
to
the
beat him.
same stance. He's going to the same stance as Qui-Gon. I'm going to do the same exact thing that I did to kill Qui-Gon. Obi-Wan's thinking, okay, Maul being the person he is, if I go into Qui-Gon's stance, he is going to get lured into thinking he's going to kill me that way, and I'm going to do the same thing that Qui-Gon did. Well, since Obi-Wan knew that Maul was going to do that, what does Maul do? He comes in the same exact way he goes to kill Qui-Gon, and he tries to bump up Obi-Wan's arms, just like he did with Qui-Gon. And Obi-Wan, what does Obi-Wan do? Oh, sorry, my phone is on.
No, you're fine.
What does Obi-Wan do? Slashes the lightsaber right down the middle, plays it perfectly. And as Maul's dying, he says, "Will he avenge us?"
Or is he the chosen one?
Is he the chosen one? And Obi-Wan's like, yes,
he is.
And then chills just run down your back as you see Luke. You hear Aunt Beru calling, Luke.
Yeah, Luke.
And Luke runs, and Obi-Wan's just watching over.
Yeah.
So here's my question.
Okay.
Where in the timeline is the Obi-Wan series going to take place? Because what if
10 years after Revenge of the Sith?
So when does Twin Sons take place?
5 years.
Okay. So it is a bit after.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, that would have been so cool if they did it like right at that time. And then kind of went through it and moved through.
If you listen to the podcast last week, we talked about the Kenobi show.
Uh-huh.
And I tell you that he will get off of Tatooine, but we will talk about that later.
Yeah.
So season 3 ends up Thrawn finds the base.
Finds the rebel base with the Bendu. I forget what planet that is. It's not Dantooine, is it?
No, it's not Dantooine.
Oh,
it's close to Dantooine though. And it's called 0 Hour.
Yeah.
I believe. Or is that wrong? No, that's not 0 Hour.
Yeah, it's 0 Hour part 1 and 2.
Okay. I thought so.
Wait, let me see what planet. It is out Adelon?
Yeah, Adelon. It's Adelon. It's Adelon, okay. Yes.
So, Thrawn being the guy he is, which obviously a lot more stuff happens in the season with Thrawn and everything. Mm-hmm. But for the general plot rundown, Thrawn finds the base, has them completely cornered to the
Yep.
point where the Ghost Crew is like hiding under like rubble, trying
Yeah.
not to get completely demolished by
Annihilated.
Thrawn's Star Destroyer.
Yep.
And then who comes in clutch? The Bendu, the middle, the man that has been all throughout season 3, and we never quite saw his powers. We just see this big giant tree
Yep.
elephant thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Guess you could say. He's like, okay, no, this is not right. And the
Yep.
Bendu just completely destroys everything.
And he says to Thrawn, "I know how you die. You die in a uh it's very and it ends up happening to him,
Mm-hmm.
um which we will talk about in a little bit. So then after season 3, season 4, they're left stranded. They don't really know another it I think it takes another time jump. I think it takes another
In
time
between
jump.
3 and 4.
Yes, they take a time jump to show the progression of the Rebel Alliance as a whole, because in season 3 you also meet up with Saw Gerrera, and you
Season
get
4 Saw.
season 4 Saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because once season 3 ends and the Bendu saves everyone, obviously Thrawn's still out there.
Mm-hmm.
Rebel base goes and moves.
To Yavin
Yeah.
in season
You
4.
then, yes, yeah. And then you see Sabine in the season opener comes and saves her father,
Yes,
who was getting like captured by the Empire. We
in
see
Mandalore.
Kanan
Mm-hmm.
continue to, or I mean, Ezra continue to progress. Kanan continue to progress as a character,
Yep.
and we also get to see Ezra flying a jetpack, which is awesome. Making
Yeah,
a jetpack
he's
with
not
his
very
lightsaber
knowledgeable of
ignited.
it, but it's hilarious. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and season 4, the first half is decent. We get everything with Saw Gerrera, their whole mission. I'm not the biggest Saw fan. I think he's in too much. That's just me
Mm-hmm.
though. But anyway, Saw, we get to see Saw, their whole mission. Get to see obviously his whole rundown about how he wants every single Imperial person ever dead.
Yep,
And
pretty
they're like,
much.
hey, and then
And
Sabine's
then
like, hey, no,
yeah,
stop.
Mon Mothma also, when he calls her out in that hologram, she's like,
Yeah.
"You're an extremist. Like, we got to have some decency left if we're going to be a rebellion."
Yeah.
But
And then from season, or meant from episode 6 on, is one continuous plot line.
oh yeah, it's main just getting to the end, because this is the series. This season is the last season of the show,
Yeah.
and it leads up to, so major
Well, we
things
meet
happen.
Roch. We
Yep.
meet Roch,
Yeah,
who
Roch
is
or Rook
a,
or Rook.
Roch,
Yeah,
however
Rook.
the heck you're gonna say his name.
Yeah, Rook.
It's continuing to get worse
On
with
Lothal.
Thrawn, and yeah, I mean they're just getting to the point where the Thal is getting beat down.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think the first giant, I mean, let's see, is there any other? Power continues to get greater, and Hera gets captured.
Yep, because they tried to attack a facility on Lothal that is pushing
Yes,
out the Tide Defenders, which are a big thing
which is
for
yeah.
Lothal, and
What
Thrawn's
kind of yeah,
which is supposed to be Thrawn's big thing for to combat the Death Star,
yes,
actually.
yes.
So they try to destroy that. Hera gets captured. Kanan realizes that this is probably the last mission that he goes on. So him, Sabine, and Ezra go and try to save Hera. Um, they end up, so Ezra and Sabine end up getting
So they
a
all
shuttle
yeah.
for them to escape on. Kanan ends up getting Hera.
Well, they all go flying in on those cool little bird
The
things.
gunship, yeah, it's like a mixture of the gunship and the Imperial shuttles. It's like a mixture of the
Mhm.
two.
But I'm saying whenever they first go in to get Hera back,
Yeah.
they make
Oh
those
yeah, they
like
fly on the.
makeshift fly things. I always
Yeah.
thought those were really cool.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a cool concept.
Yeah,
And
but
then
then Sabine and Ezra go to get a shuttle to export them after they get Hera,
yep.
and Hera is getting tortured by Price. I hate Price
Yeah,
so
Price
much
Price
because
is a
of
big
that.
player, and she's just the
She's
worst.
so horrible. I hate her. Anyway, Kanan, um, well, she's injected with truth serum, and Kanan goes and gets her.
And
They have a little lovey-dovey moment. They get her
yeah.
Kalikori back, which we really didn't talk much about the Kalikori. Um, again, because we're just kind of running through the plot, and there are a lot more deep things that you could probably make a whole episode on some of the things
Oh
we've
yeah,
talked
you could
about
do you could do a
easily.
whole episode. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, the Kalikori is just another little deep thing that is an
Yes.
heirloom passed down um through Hera's family, and
Yeah, and it's something that means a
just
lot
in
to
on
her.
Ryloth in general.
Yep.
Kalikoris are a very important thing for families.
Absolutely.
Thrawn knows that. He captures the Kalikori. As they're leaving, Kanan swoops in, takes the Kalikori, they go, and then
Mm-hmm.
they have the kiss.
Yep.
Oh.
They kiss, and then so as they're trying to escape, they're on this gas, like they somehow
Yeah, they're
are trying to escape, and they're on this their gas facility
tank
for their whole
almost.
factory.
Yeah.
And Price, being the moron that she is, tries to kill the rebels by blowing up the factory and completely shutting down their process while Thrawn is gone on Coruscant, by the way.
Yes. Yeah.
Um uh and Kanan, to save the others.
So Kanan. So the explosion comes as Ezra and Sabine are coming in
Yeah.
to come and swoop them down and save them.
Yep.
Kanan's holding the
Mm-hmm.
flame, and then oh,
Well, and then you
he
get the
looks
pan.
back. He
Yeah.
looks back at Hera, gets his vision back, and as he gets his
Uh
vision back,
Pushes them.
pushes them away.
That's a big moment. That's his ultimate that's his
That
ultimate
is
arc.
that is Kanan going from "Am I worthy to train this boy?" to risking, or
I am a Jedi
to
Knight.
I am a Jedi Knight and I am going to take away my own life for these people.
Yeah, which is huge. And
Now,
the
here's the
build
thing.
up for everything else for what happens the rest of the season, this is the catalyst for it.
Yes.
And this is what they fight for, is the memory of Kanan and the obviously getting the empire off of Lothal, but the way it affects each member of the
When
ghost
Zeb doesn't
crew.
know.
Yeah, Zeb doesn't know
Zeb
until they
doesn't know. They get
land.
back to the base and he's like, "Hey, where's Kanan?" And they're like, "He
And they
died."
don't say anything. Yeah. And
Yeah,
he
I think they
just,
just walk off and he's like, "Oh my gosh."
yeah. Yeah. And then so Ezra, I think so after he meets, so then the Loth Wolves comes into play.
Yeah. So then these Loth Wolves, which are they in the season? Are they? I
Yes,
think they
they're in,
show up after.
well, they show up in season
Uh,
4.
yeah, in
Uh,
season 4, yes.
yeah.
And these
So,
wolves, which Ezra can control using the Force,
and
show up,
understand.
yes, and understand, and start saying doom,
Yeah. And then this
doom.
big one ends up coming out. And
Yeah,
the reason why they're saying Doom is because that's Kanan's
last
actual
name.
name is Caleb
Caleb
Doom.
Doom.
So we're meant to think that this is Kanan somehow or the Force manifesting him
Kanan's spirit
into
into a wolf.
into a
That's what I
wolf.
like to think too. I don't see it would be any other way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I mean, so much stuff happens with the Loth Wolves,
Yep.
and then as they're trying to infiltrate the Imperial base again, the Palpatine comes into play and is basically luring Ezra
to the
to
to the
open this portal.
well, before the portal is the world between worlds.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm saying. The portal.
oh yeah, so
Yes.
he's trying to find the portal or the world between worlds. So Ezra uses Ezra, Zeb, and Sabine and Chopper use the Loth Wolves to travel from one part of the
Yeah.
hemisphere to the
To the other
next
in like a
hemisphere.
day. Like those things must have
Less
been the
than that.
fastest
It's like
wolf in the world.
you start to wonder, do they have hyperspace? Do
Yeah, I
they
know,
have
right?
hyperdrives? Or so they show up. The Empire is at the site of the Jedi Temple, where the Jedi Temple used to
Yes.
be, and they are looking at artifacts and stuff to figure out what this all means. And when you see the first
You
thing
see
you
the
see is
father,
the father, the son, and the
son,
daughter
and the
from
daughter.
the Mortis arc of
Yes.
the Clone
Which it all
Wars.
ties back. It
It
all
all
ties
ties
back.
back. And Ezra and Sabine figure out a way to open up the portal. Ezra goes through the portal, and it's a one-way thing, only one way in or one way out. He finds this in the middle of time and space called the world between
World War II.
worlds.
Yeah. And it's not time travel. Dave Filoni has
No,
came out and said it's not time travel.
no, it's not
It's
time.
just almost this blank area.
Yes,
It's a void. It's a
it is a
blank
void.
void
It is
between time
basically a
and
void.
space.
Yeah, absolutely.
And while we're walking in, we hear all these voices. We hear Rey.
Rey,
We
Obi-Wan,
hear
Darth
Obi-Wan.
Vader, Padme at one point.
And all these voices while Ezra's walking through this nexus.
Yeah, it's amazing.
He then is then who appears? Morai.
Yeah, Morai, which is
So
the
Morai
manifestation of
appears,
the daughter.
yes, who always follows Ahsoka around.
Ahsoka, yes.
So Morai is guiding Ezra through the world between worlds to the portal where Ahsoka and Vader fight.
And
As
that
she's about to get killed, Ezra goes, no.
grabs her from the fight, which in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the TVA would have been all over that.
Oh yeah. I mean,
But
the War Between Worlds and the TVA, like, are, if it helps you understand it, are semi kind of
sort of it's
in
the
the
void.
same, yeah,
It's just in the
kind
middle of the
of the
void.
same, but
Yeah, a
not
little
really
bit.
the same, but in a void. I don't know.
Yeah, no, sort
I'm
of.
not a big
Yeah.
fan of time travel, but
No, neither am
I mean, but okay. Anyways, Ezra reaches out, grabs Ahsoka, and saves her, which was meant to happen. Ahsoka was never. I think that's a huge misconception. Is people think Ahsoka was gonna die there? That was not ever. That was never gonna happen. The whole point, like, the World Between Worlds, still is one continuous time.
Yep.
It's just he saved her in the World Between Worlds. It's not like she was gonna die. He came out and grabbed her. No, it wasn't. It wasn't changing the fate of anything. It was how it was meant to be. And Ahsoka then is like, "Oh my gosh, where are we? How did we get here? And what is going on?"
Yes.
Then learns Kanan dies, and it's heartbreaking, but Ahsoka's like, "Okay, what's going on?
Like what?
Where are we?"
Yeah.
Ezra explains kind of how he got there, and then Palpatine appears,
which is
dope.
Ian McDiarmid, reprising his role as Emperor Palpatine, should be the only one that does it. Until he dies, then Sam Witwer can do it. Sam Witwer does
Sam Witwer can do it.
Sam Witwer did Palpatine for The Force Unleashed.
Did
So he
he?
did he did Star Killer and Palpatine.
No
So yeah,
kidding.
he does a really good Darth Sidious. But so they end up escaping the world between worlds. Ahsoka ends up going back to the time, which when I said in season 2 she was alive, you can see her say "Good luck,
Yes.
Ezra Bridger" as she's walking down into the tunnel, and Morai is seen following closely behind her.
Yes.
So that answers a whole lot of questions about season 2. Um, then Ezra gets the idea of the next couple of episodes getting all of the characters that we have met in the series together to save Lothal.
Well, originally he wanted to save Kanan.
Yeah,
He's like, "Oh my
originally
gosh,
he did.
I can save Ahsoka. Why can't I save Kanan?" And then they're like, "You can't do that,"
Because if you
and it
do,
breaks
you
his heart.
die.
Yeah. So then they get, but yeah, all the characters they have previously met throughout the series
Yep.
in an attempt to save Lothal, including Hondo
Naga.
Onaka,
Hondo.
who
Hondo
we
Naga.
who's kind of like
Hondo.
the weird cousin the whole entire time, just kind of
Oh yeah.
shows up. But he shows up everything with Morton, whatever. They go to save Lothal, and successfully they do, with the expense that as Ezra and Thrawn, Ezra turns himself in.
Yes, he turns himself in because if he doesn't, Thrawn will bombard the city,
Yes,
which he does once.
which
Um,
shows extreme. That is the biggest part in Kanan's arc, is
Ezra
that
is able to
moment.
make that decision.
He is going from this kid who is stealing food, barely able to survive, making his way through, not a very good person,
No.
to risking his life for
Yeah.
Lothal and for his family.
Yeah, absolutely. And that just goes to show you the direction that Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck and all of the people have, and how much trust we have in Dave. And this is
Yeah.
why he is in in the position that he is now.
Yeah.
So Thrawn brings him in, has a bit of the Jedi Temple from Lothal, and Palpatine shows up as the Chancellor, and he does his
Yes.
little manipulation. He's probably the best manipulator in all of cinema. He tries to manipulate, shows Ezra a portal to where he can have his parents back. His parents are alive, and he can
But
live
if he
that life.
does,
But if he does, he loses everything. Kind of like the
well, and no,
same way
and
that he does it to Rey in The Rise of Skywalker.
well, he gets, if Ezra went in, um, Palpatine would be able to go through the world between worlds.
Oh yeah, and that too.
I mean, that's pretty big. If Ezra
Yeah.
goes in there and Ezra chooses no, because he learns that he can't just go in there and save people. It's not how it works.
Yeah.
He can't. He has to come to the harsh realization
Yeah.
that he's never going to see his parents again.
No. Yeah.
Which is one of Ezra's biggest
Realization. His
realizations.
toughest situation that he has to face in all of the series
Is he
is
has to
knowing that
realize,
his
okay,
parents are no longer here.
yeah,
And that he has, well, and he's lucky he has a new family. But
yeah,
after he destroys the portal, he goes and tries to take out Thrawn. And what shows up but the space whales from season 2?
Purgles.
Yeah, the Purgles.
The Purgles show up because Ezra's ability. I forget what ability it's called.
So it's not an ability. He uses the frequency that they were spawned to. The ghost goes into hyperspace, uses a frequency to have them all show up. And when they all show up, they take out the Empire at the same time.
And one
so
of the Purgles wraps around Thrawn.
And
Ezra is
Star Destroyer.
And Ezra's almost in the same position that Kanan was.
Yeah.
He's holding Thrawn at will with one hand.
Yeah.
And Ghost Crew with the other hand.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a very, very telling moment. And Ezra plays a message to the Ghost Crew saying, "Hey, if you're watching this, you know that I'm
Yes.
gone. I did this. I did this for you guys. I hope to
That
see you again. Sabine, come and find me.
yes.
Basically, and the Empire. So they send up the actual base full of Imperials. They send it up in the sky and blow it up, put it for self destruct. And Lothal, from that point on, is free, and the Empire never comes back. They never come back, which is the most strange thing to me. But then again,
Yeah,
the original trilogy happens
yeah,
during
yeah,
that
the original
for
trilogy
4 years.
happens. I I like it. They said, okay, I guess we lost. It's probably because they lost so much.
That they didn't
They're
want
like,
to.
okay,
There's no point.
we're not gonna be able to.
Well,
And
yeah,
ultimately, the Ghost Crew won. Ezra won,
yeah. Ezra
but
won.
now, but now he's gone.
He's gone.
And the end, and what do you call that? Not the end credit scene, but that the last few minutes of the show is Sabine a few years down the line saying what happens to everyone. Zeb
Yes.
and Callus go off and live on their own with the people of the
With the
Lasat.
Lasats. Mm-hmm.
Um, Sabine and Ahsoka. Well, Hera goes and raises Jason Syndulla, which, by
Which
the
is
way, she was
the
pregnant, which is the
weird.
kid of Kanan and Hera.
Yeah.
Interesting kid.
Wondering when that happened.
Which I think we're gonna see him in Ranger of the New Republic,
Possibly. Yeah.
and Ahsoka and Sabine, and the final thing she says is, "Ezra Bridger's out there. It's time to bring him home.
Yeah, yeah. Time for him to come home.
Time for him to
And
come
that's where
home.
we're at now. Possibly we see Thrawn and Ezra in the Ahsoka
We
series.
will. We will.
Um,
We will.
it'll be interesting.
I can't see us not seeing.
Yeah,
I mean, even in Mando, she's like, "Where's Grand Admiral Thrawn?" I think that kind of
yeah,
seals the deal
absolutely.
that Ahsoka is gonna be almost a Rebels sequel.
It could
It
be
should be. I think.
absolutely, but it'll still
Obviously I want
be
it to be, but
it'll still be a Ahsoka centric show, but they will do Finding of Ezra and stuff like that. But
yeah.
well, guys, that is Rebels in a nutshell. I'm sure we missed a whole ton, but
Oh,
I
we
like
missed so much. Yeah,
we
but
this episode is full of knowledge. There's things that we could have missed, but you know what? We're gonna do a Rebels recap once we finish the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch, and we'll get to Rebels, and we'll have Carter on every once in a while to recap individual episodes, do a little bit deeper dives into Rebels. But guys, I think that's going to be it for an episode. Carter, where can the good people find you?
so I am on TikTok at Cart2d2, and my backup account is Cart2d2. I was experimenting with accounts. My main account is Cart2d2 1.0. Soon, once the 1 month expiration gets up, I'm just gonna make that Cart2d2. So you can find me there, and you can find me on the every Monday at 8 o'clock Eastern time on
Mm-hmm.
the They Fly Now show. Myself and Harith Productions on TikTok. We have our own podcast where we have
Yep.
some amazing guests coming on, including Legan.
Yep.
Will be on here in a few upcoming weeks. So
Yes.
you can
Can't
find me
wait.
there. It's an awesome show. This
Mm-hmm.
Monday we will be talking about lightsaber fights across Star Wars and more of a deeper meaning into it with some amazing guests. And
Oh,
you won't want to
absolutely.
miss it.
No,
So you
yeah.
can find us on YouTube at the They Fly Now Show and on TikTok at the They Fly Now Show, and myself at Cart2d2.
And guys,
So
you can find us at the Padawans podcast on TikTok, Instagram at Padawans on Twitter. And I just want to say thank you, Carter, for being my first guest.
it was
We
an
look.
honor. And this was my first time guest starring, I guess you could say, on a podcast. So it was a first
Yeah.
for both of us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was a pleasure. We'll have you more on once we once we get a little bit farther through the Clone Wars arcs and the Into Rebels. But
Yes.
that is all. May the Force be with you.
Always.